and boom goes the dynamite.
Welcome back to the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show. This is Daily Dive. I am your host, Michael Karvelis, saying good morning to all on the West Coast, and to the East Coast, good afternoon. It's time for lunch. So on today's show, our top story will be the San Diego Seals have locked up the number one seed in the West. Remember, we talked about the Buffalo Bandits yesterday doing the same thing in the East. Well, now we're going to talk about the Seals and why I still am not completely sold on that team. We'll also talk about some interesting stats that I found this morning that makes my argument better for shooting percentage instead of shots on goal are a cool stat. Our big guest by Fanatics will be Graeme Perrow, who will be coming back on the show again. He will talk about his could happen segment of NLLstats.com, along with who he thinks the league MVP is for the NLL. And our last brew by BB's Coffee Company, code Daily Dive, will be Albany's Twitter fired back on attendances. And I had a little communication with them myself. So we'll talk about that again and talk about those 3,107 ghosts that were supposedly at the stadium. With that being said, let's get to our top story presented by our Daily Dive store. Go to Daily Dive Lax on social media and check out the link tree in our bio. And when you do, tap the Our Store tab, and there you can shop the awesome merchandise with this logo on it, including awesome shirts like this, hoodies, beanies, mugs. It's all right there. So support the show while we try to grow the game by going to Daily Dive Lax, clicking the social media bio link, hitting our store, and you get awesome merchandise with this logo on it, Daily Dive branded merch. Thank you so much for that. Our top story is the San Diego Seals have locked up the number one seed in the NLL. They call it Kings of the West. Okay, so this was, of course, going to happen by default, barring injury, where the San Diego Seals this season traded for, or in the offseason traded for, Curtis Dixon and Wesley. Well, they had Wesley Berg and Dean Dobie. They traded for Curtis Dixon. They added a bunch of guys on this team. And this season, the Wesley Berg has 106 points, 97 for Dane Dobie, 97 for Curtis Dixon, and Austin Stotts is 69. They're a pretty stacked up team. But one thing I will say about this team that I've said over and over and over again, and people do not seem to like it, and I'm okay with that, is they're very inconsistent. In fact, Renee Washington, when she helped us out, she talked about how they were inconsistent. I think she was the first one to bring it up, actually. So get her, not me. I'm kidding. But really, this to me should have happened a week or two ago. And I know I'm just nitpicking here, but for great teams and great players, like I did with Jeff Teets, you have to nitpick these kind of things to see if they really are creme de la creme or just another good side dish. See, the San Diego Seals, of course, beat down the Desert Dogs, and they swept the season series. So, unfortunately, I did not get my rivalry as I wanted, although they did play the first Stadium Showdown game, and that was awesome. I want to give a shout out to Cooper Perkins, who comes on the show regularly to talk about the Seals and how he has defended them. And, hey, they look good. When they're on it, they might be the best team in lacrosse. However, I believe that the goalie situation and the defense is by far my biggest concern. Well, Michael, they allowed only 4 goals or whatever it was against Las Vegas. That's fine. That's an expansion team which won 5 games that have absolutely nowhere and has since crapped the bed, if we're being quite honest with ourselves. Las Vegas just tailed off at the end of the season. Unlike Panther City in year 1, where they got stronger, Las Vegas has not gotten stronger their last 5 weeks of the season. San Diego Seals have had too many long stretches, and it's happened over and over and over again, where they just don't score and they allow some goals. To me, that's not going to get it done. When you're playing Calgary, when you're in the finals, if and probably when they make it, which again makes me look stupid. You're playing the Bandits. You're playing the Rock. Even the West, back to the West, you got Calgary, like I said. You've got Colorado Mammoth. You've got the what was it? The Panther City. Those teams will not lay down if you don't let them. You've got to go. You've got to attack them. This team, to me, has too many long stretches all season long where they haven't been good. And yeah, of course, their record, like they locked in the number 1 seed. That's great. That's fine. That's dandy. But it's not good enough to me. This team should be a lot better. And to me, they've kind of been coasting through the season. They might have another gear or a switch that they can turn on or flip on. I'm not so sure about that. From what I've seen, they beat up on the Desert Dogs 3 times. Great. Other than that, I haven't been impressed with them. I'm sorry. I think the Mammoth beat them like in Colorado. That meant something to me. Because Colorado, at that point, we thought they were dead again. And Colorado found some life by peppering the Seals. Like, I think they went 15-14 like a week or 2 ago. Can't happen. Cannot happen. Let's get some interesting stats that I found looking at NLLstats.com, which I'll get to in a little bit. The first one I want to get to is this one. There are 2 players in the NLL this season that have 100 points and 10 caused turnovers. Their names are the aforementioned Wesley Berg of the San Diego Seals and Dane Smith of the Buffalo Bandits. Now, of course, I believe Dane Smith is a better player, but Wesley Berg, I did not realize that he was doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've watched the games, but I'll be honest. Dane Smith's defense against the Rock was pretty awesome. And I feel like that was a big deal for the Bandits coming back. It's why he was one of our 3 stars of the weekend. But Wesley Berg having those 10 caused turnovers is also a pretty big deal. Again, only 2 players have 100 points and 10 caused turnovers. In fact, in the NLL this season, there are currently 9 players with 100 points. And there are also currently, holy cow, this list is long. There are also currently 91 players with 10 caused turnovers. And to me, if you have both, there's only 2 of them. There you go, Dane Smith and, of course, like I said, Wesley Berg. And also I wanted to get to is a one that, again, some people don't like this. It's shots on goal. How many times have you seen the NLL advertise shots on goal? Tom Schreiber had 14 shots on goal. He scored 2 goals. What? Okay. Shots on goal, Tom Schreiber has 256. Connor Fields, who I used to call the best player in the NLL, may do it again tomorrow, we'll see, has 193 shots on goal. Now, with a discrepancy like that of, 63 more shots, one would imagine you might have a little bit more goals. No, Connor Fields actually has 2 more goals than Tom Schreiber does. But Tom Schreiber, the one that has those shots on goal, baby. I asked a poll on Instagram. What matters more to you? Scoring or hoping my team picks up the loose ball in front of the net? I'm just saying. Now, I don't know if I'm the guy who created NLLstats.com wants me to use those kind of stats for the show, but we'll talk to him next. Graeme Perrow of NLL Stats and many other things will talk to us next on our big guest. Don't go anywhere. it's our big guest presented by Fanatics. Hey, a familiar face. Graeme Perrow is back on the show, and welcome back, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Did you enjoy the games this weekend?
Yes, definitely. As a Rock fan, I particularly enjoyed the Rock versus Bandits fan, but I think if you're a lacrosse fan at all, you probably enjoyed that game.
Yeah, I watched it from start to finish, and I have to say I'm glad I did. I'm Graeme Perrow, of course, creator of NLLstats.com, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the game because first I want to ask you, was it the best game you've seen? Because I know you've seen a lot more than I have.
It's hard to quantify which games are better than others. It's certainly not possible to quantify numbers wise, but it was certainly an exciting game. One of the better ones this season for sure. Just the fact that these were two, they both clinched playoff spot. They both clinched a playoff home game, but they both really wanted that number one seed in the East, and that was obvious. They don't like each other, which always makes for exciting games as well.
Nope.
But with teams that have great goaltending, have great defense, have great transition, have great scoring, just have great everything, you're going to get a really good game out of that, and that's what we saw.
In your estimation, what do you think was the difference from the Bandits this game versus the last game they played the Rock? And of course, we all know how that went. What was the difference to you?
That's an interesting question. Matt Vince didn't play great in the last game. He was obviously much better in this one. The Bandits were missing Dehoka and Antikoke. They were also missing Chase Fraser in that one, and both returned in this game. And the Bandits are a little, I don't want to say weird, but we were all expecting them to be a offensive powerhouse and just outscore the crap out of everybody. And it'd be them and the Seals basically vying for the top scoring team in the league. Yep. And that's not what happened with the Bandits at all. But they still continue to find ways to win. They don't have to score 17 goals to win. With the defense they have with Matt Vince in goal, they had one game this year where they won 7-6 or 8-6 or something like that. So even if they're not scoring, they can still win. So I think adding Antikoke and Fraser back in certainly helped them a lot.
I'd say in this game it definitely did. You're more on Matt Vince. You did have a great tweet, which I had to retweet on the account and my own, I believe. You said Nick Rose outplayed Matt Vince tonight, but Vince was unbeatable in the final 30 seconds, which made all the difference. Couldn't have said it better myself. That was great by you. Just to let you know. So let's get to, because we know Nick Rose is in contention for something called the MVP of the league. And I wanted to get your thoughts on who is the MVP, because I personally like Dane Smith. I've heard there's a big Christian Del Bianco fan base. Who is your MVP right now with 1 week to go?
I think I'm leaning towards Del Bianco as well.
Okay.
Obviously he's giving the Roughnecks great goaltending as expected, but he pushes the ball up the floor so well that he's basically an extra transition player. Obviously that leads directly to goals more than any other goalie because he's got 19 assists, which is way more than anybody.
Yep.
But even if he doesn't get an assist, he's getting that transition going, forcing the other team to hurry up their reverse transition. And the more you force another team to hurry something up, the more likely they are to make a mistake. And that the fact that he's giving them the outstanding goaltending and transition, I just think of where the Roughnecks would be if they had an average goaltender that didn't do that transition stuff. And I don't think they'd be at or near the top of the West Division. So I would give it to Del Bianco. Now, Dane Smith is certainly an excellent choice as well.
Agreed.
He's obviously a huge part of the Bandits offense. He's not a player where you use the phrase got stuck on defense, because every now and again, an offensive player gets back there and doesn't have time to get off the floor and has to play D. And with Dane Smith, I doubt very much that John Tavares is worried much about it because he's played a lot of defense. He played defense for the first year or two of his NLL career. He's very good at it. So he's just one of those guys where as long as he's on the floor, you are happy as his coach.
I brought the stat up from I got from your website that I figured out is he's one of 2 players with 100 points and 10 caused turnovers. To your point about defense, there's a lot of impressive stats. Of course, you mentioned Christian Del Bianco with 19 assists from a goalie. Which stat is the most impressive to you by a player this season?
I have to go to the other end of the country, actually. I'm going to go with Jake Withers. He currently has a 79.2% face-off percentage, which is unbelievable. Anytime that you're talking about face-off guys, the name Jeff Snyder has to come up. And before this season, I'm pretty sure Snyder had 5 of the best 6 seasons in terms of face-off percentage. And Withers is higher than all of them. He is now set. Well, assuming he doesn't drop too far in the last game, he has the highest face-off percentage in NLL history, which is insane. But not only is he higher than all those other seasons from Snyder, second place is Trevor Baptiste, who is also one of the best, who's at 70%. So if you're beating 70% by beating second place by a full 10 percentage points, that's just unbelievable. So I'd have to go with Jake Withers. Close behind that would be Dane Smith's assist total.
Okay.
He has 93 assists in 17 games, which means he's one short of his own single season record with a game left to play. And he's averaging like 5.5 a game. So all he needs is maybe 1 or 2 extra to hit 100 assists in a season, which was just unbelievable.
I wonder if he's going to go for that, actually, as you mention it. You mentioned the Jake Withers thing. I personally have found that, and I used your website to do it, the NLLstats.com, because I was like, I kept on going back in time. I was like, there's nobody higher than this Jake Withers fellow. So I agree that's one of the most impressive things I've seen as well. A new thing I noticed on your website in the last couple of weeks has been could happen. And I wanted to get to, because I know if we had done this last week, it would have been even more fun. But this week, there is still some stuff to happen of the week 22 games. You got Halifax, Georgia, Philadelphia, Rochester. First of all, how hard was it to create that aspect of the website? And also, who do you like in the East, by the way?
As for the website, that's my job. I write computer software for a living. I've been doing that for 30 years. Obviously not web software for that amount of time, but I haven't been doing that for a while. And so I always sort of wanted the ability to just say, well, what happens if this team wins out and that team wins out? You know, are they close? And first you have to do the math, and it's not difficult, but it's a pain in the butt. So, excuse me, I created this so that I could basically just say, what if I change these games and say, whatever team wins these games, what happens? And there's the only part of it that I'm not happy with is the tiebreakers, because the tiebreaker scenarios are really complicated. Mm-hmm. Some of them are really hard to implement in the website, so there's a few that I just skipped. But in some cases, like if you've got a 3-way tie, you may have to say, okay, what teams have all 3 of those teams played the same number of times, and what's the record in those games? And I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's a significant amount of work. And in some cases, I haven't managed to get that done. So there are some cases where the scenarios shown are actually incorrect, but only in really bizarre cases.
So I just tried my own. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, who do I like in the East?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're down to Rochester, Halifax, and Georgia. So I'm pretty sure Philadelphia was eliminated last weekend. Sorry, Rochester is in. It's just Halifax and Georgia that are left. I'm gonna have to say Halifax there.
Oh wow!
They haven't had the greatest season, or certainly not as good a season as I think a lot of us were expecting. But they were starting to come on better near the end of the season. Georgia obviously started off terrible and has been really good since then. But if you look at who Georgia has beaten, not one of the teams that they've beaten has a record over 500.
Yeah, I saw that. That was
So,
bad.
so I mean, it's not to say that they haven't been playing really well.
Right.
And Brett Dobson is a legitimate Rookie of the Year candidate.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, it's hard to say. But when it comes down to it, I'm leaning towards Halifax, and I can't honestly say why, other than the one Georgia thing that I mentioned. If they had played Rochester last week and beaten them, that'd be a different story.
Agreed. I did pick Rochester. One of 3 games I got right this weekend. I'm actually going with Georgia at home, but I dig what you're saying about Halifax. Halifax to me is one of the most potent offenses. Like, they can get going and get hot quick. So you may be right about that. Who knows?
It'll be a great game to watch, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Graeme, thank you so much. Are we going to have Could Happen all season next year, or just for the playoffs again?
It only shows up about 2/3 of the way through the season. Just because if you've only played a handful of games, then listing these 150 games that have yet to be played and say, okay, you can start picking things. I mean, it's still going to work, but it's basically making too many guesses, and it's not really that useful until you're closer to the end of the season.
That's a fair point. You do great work. I love the websites where I get all my information from. It's easy to use. And again, thank you for coming on the show again. I'm sure we'll have you back on for the playoffs. Graeme Perrow, everybody. Thank you again, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Absolutely. All right. So I hear more Christian Del Bianco talk. I'm telling you, they love the 19 assists. And I don't know if I'm going to convert to that, but we'll see how the last week of the season goes. I wouldn't mind if Del Bianco did win, because goalies do need some love in this league. Calgary does play. I'm kidding. Their season is over. Buffalo, Dane Smith, what if he reaches 100 assists? Like, can we do the Dane Smith MVP? Like, would that trump the 19 assists from a goalie? I don't know. I'm conflicted again. I love Dane Smith, but I also love the goalie part. So shout out to him. And also the NLLstats.com website is insane. It's just so simple and awesome. When I come back, though, Albany Firewolves Twitter, this is fun. Even I got involved in this little thing. They started chirping off about the attendances. There were not 3,000 people there. We'll be right back. Thanks again to Graeme Perrow for coming on the show today. It's Daily Dive, and we're back for a final last brew. Hey, waiter, excuse me, I need some more coffee. B-Res Coffee Company, code Daily Dive at checkout to help support the show. That's B-R-E-Z Coffee Company, code Daily Dive. You don't want to miss their awesome flavors they've got over there. Okay. Albany Firewolves, a team that is, let me get this record straight real quick. I don't want to, do them short here. 3-14. It's not a good year for them. This week they do play Buffalo Bandits. Good luck with that. Although to be fair, I have said I thought Albany has had a great last 3 or 4 weeks. They came so close to beating Philadelphia, and unfortunately, Mitch Jones, Joe Terrence, and Ben McIntosh had other plans, as did Zach Higgins with 54 stinking saves. That's nuts. But Albany on Twitter, okay. Somebody named Jim, I'm going to say Keller, let's just say Keller. We'll call him Jim. Jim shared a photo saying he's like happy to be in his first game. And to be fair, Albany started this little back and forth. Here's the photo he shared. And for emphasis, I'm going to zoom in on this. Have a look around. And while I'm doing this, I want to also get this on down here as well. So again, Jim Keller, we'll call him Jim, just in case. There are 3,107 people at this game. I feel like we could have a counting session. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. We'll say 4. We'll say 10. If that's like 10 people right there, I think somebody saying 500 was probably being generous. Okay. So again, this is Jim Keller, or Jim at his first NLL game. There's the fans in front of him. The game is going on. It is in the, looks like the first quarter there. So there you have Jim's picture, okay? And I want to get to this because their tweets started a little back and forth with me and a few other people. Albany's tweet was, sorry we couldn't pull out the win, but battled hard. Agreed. Attendance was not good. Well, that's for sure. I guess Sundays aren't a good time for most. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know how you think we can make it a better experience. I'm not harping on what the admin did there. That was great response. And then I was wondering, so I asked them this, who even reported 3,107? Just wondering, it's clear someone lied. I'm not nice sometimes, I'll admit it. Here's what the Albany Firewolves Twitter account said. Again, they don't reply to people much. The number is a combo from both Albany and MVP Arena. We don't have access to sell certain MVP seats, which is why, of course, the top deck is not there. Or like the top deck is empty, although the whole stadium is, to be fair, but you get it. It combines paid in comp, but can miss special groups. Possibly the figure was not adjusted for a low scan rate, as many didn't attend due to weather or watching the playoffs. Okay, I told you guys yesterday, I understand that there's a bunch of playoffs going on right now. We know this. But why, again, their response, again, I'm not mad at the admin. It's not their fault. They're just trying to explain something to me. They probably know I host a Daily Dive. But is it any coincidence that this photo and that amount of fans led to 1 million for the attendances this season? I just think it's very peculiar that after Albany reported that, we got to 1 million fans in attendance. I don't know who to blame, because it's not fair. It doesn't, again, I'll emphasize this point again. It's not Albany's, it may not be the Albany Firewolves' fault. It's definitely not the Twitter admin's fault. And also, I will agree with the NLL. It was the most since 2008. I'm sure of it. But 1 million fans, I don't know how long it would actually take to get that number, because in Georgia, there were not 9,000 people. And now I want to get to another picture, just to again emphasize the point here. We're going to get to this person named Mike Casey, 1111. I love those numbers. I'm going to get to it here. Again, we're talking about these attendances again. And the Albany Firewolves, who reported 3,107, may not have been the Twitter admin, but just saying, okay? This is from Jim. This is from Mike Casey. I don't want to call him Jim again. Here it is. Let's zoom in. That looks a little bit better, but what is this? Again, you can do this for probably a few teams in the league. Hey, look, there's LeClaire. that Thompson? Doesn't look like Thompson. That looks like I'm just wanting to know the player's name now. It looks like Thompson. I can't tell though. Oh well. The fact is, there are not 3,107 people there. Okay? This is not a shot at the Albany admin. This is not a shot at, I'm just telling you about the banter that was going on. But that explanation, again, it goes to my point. So as they said, possibly the figure was not adjusted for a low scan rate, as many did not attend due to weather or watching the playoffs. Okay, so again, why was that number reported? Because to be fair, if I buy some tickets and I don't go to the game because of bad weather, do I just sit there with $100 just wasting away? Or do I do what? Oh, I ask for a refund, right? Or I sell them or something like that. I hope a team made money off this, because this is just, I'm sorry. Not doing it for me. Jim and Mike KC, shout out to those photos. And they were not like, Jim said, hey, it's my first Firewolves game. I loved it, blah, blah. Okay, so it wasn't like he was harping on anything. I want to make that clear. Those guys were definitely not saying, oh, wow, this thing sucks. No, they were happy to be there. And I'm sure, as I was happy in Georgia. But if we're reporting attendances, I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that, because that's not right to me. Daily Dive Lax on social media. Check it out. Also, a bunch of guests we've had on the show. Thanks to all of them, including Graeme Perrow, who's been on the show, what is it, 4 times he's been on now? He's great. And tomorrow we've got Brett Dobson. The saying. I told Jonathan Donville last week, we'll talk about Brett Dobson tomorrow. I've got some more guests coming on later on the week, and of course next week. You know how it goes. Last week of the regular season is going to be fun. Albany and Buffalo because of Dane Smith, but of course Halifax and Georgia is going to be amazing. Okay, so that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I know I will. Tune in, of course, Daily Dive Lax on social media. Let me know what you're thinking. And for everyone that contributes to this show, whether it be guest appearances or behind the scenes, I am Michael Karvelis saying have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow, noon Eastern. Bye.